When we compare decimals, we always want to compare it like terms. Let's call this 1 whole. Let's call this 1/10. And let's call this 1/100th. It would take 10 tenths to make 1 whole, 10 of these longs. It would take 100 hundredths to make one of these wholes, 100 small cubes. Let's use pattern blocks to show a decimal. Here is my decimal, 3 longs and 1 small cube. What would the value of this decimal be? If you said 31 hundredths, you would be correct. I have 10 hundredths, 20 hundredths, and 30 hundredths. If I cut these longs into 10 pieces each, I would have 30 small hundredths plus my 100th here. Let's compare this decimal to this decimal. What's the value of this decimal? If you said 42 hundredths, you'd be correct. 1/10 would be 10 hundredths, 2/10 would be 20 hundredths, 3/10 would be 30 hundredths, and 4/10 would be 40 hundredths. If I sliced 4/10 each of these into 10 small pieces, there would be 40 hundredths plus my 2 hundredths, I would have 42 hundredths. This means we're comparing 31 hundredths to 42 hundredths. To show this in the traditional method, we're always going to stack our decimals. That way we can line up our place values. These 4/10 belong in the tenths column, and these 2 hundredths belong in the hundredths column. These 3/10 belong in the tenths column, and this 1/100th belongs in the ones column. I see 31 hundredths compared to 42 hundredths, and my decimals are stacked. Always start comparing from the largest place value. What's a bigger place value, tenths or hundredths? If you're not sure, go one more place value to the left. What's bigger, groups of 1 or groups of a tenth? Ones are bigger than tenths. Tenths are bigger than hundredths. The same would be true for 31 hundredths. Ones are bigger than tenths. Tenths are bigger than 100ths. Let's compare the ones. What's bigger, 0 ones or 0 ones? They're equal. What's bigger, 4/10 or 3/10? 4/10 you can see are more. What's bigger, 2 hundredths or 1/100th? You can see 2 hundredths or more. We could ignore the hundredths and just compare these decimals by using the tenths. Since 4/10 is more than 3/10, we could say that 42 hundredths is greater than 31 hundredths. Or we could say 31 hundredths is less than 42 hundredths. Notice a pattern with the inequality sign. What does it always point to? Inequality signs always point to the smaller number. They always have the larger opening facing the larger number. This is how we compare decimals using the traditional method by comparing place values and stacking decimals and using pattern blocks.